Perfect. All right. Namaste, everyone. Christian Long, Life Enhancement Consultant, giving you a big and beautiful shout out on this Transformation Q&A Thursday. Before we begin, let us invoke. Place your hands on your heart. Be aware of your heart. Be aware of your crown. Feel them both expanding. And then be aware of them together. To the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, respected and beloved teacher, Grandmaster Choa Koksui, to his teacher, Lord Bodhisattva Meiling, to Lord Buddha Kuan Yin, to Sarasvati, to Lord Ganesh, to Holy Master Count Saint Germain, to all the holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, to the angels of accurate perception and correct expression, to our divine selves or higher souls, we humbly invoke for your divine light, love, and power, for your divine help, guidance, and protection, for your soothing, healing energies. We thank you. Thank you for helping us transform our lives. With gratitude, respect, and love, so be it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Well, welcome everyone, live or not live, to today's Transformation Q&A Thursday. I always remember when I was in class with Master Choa many moons ago, and he would in a way dismiss questions that were very specific to the person asking them. Meaning a person has a really powerful meditation and they see all these things and they go all these places and they have all these sensations and they want understanding, or some part of that person's life is falling apart in a very particular specific way, and they want to understand, right? They want to understand. Rightly so, right? You, in most cases, when people would go and see Master Choa, like most spiritual teachers, they would take time, money, and energy to get to the teacher, right? They would rent a hotel room, they'd rent a car, they'd buy a plane ticket, and then they would dedicate their time, money, and energy to connect with that teacher in search of what? In search of answers, right? In search of answers to their specific challenge or question. And I noticed in most times that people would ask very specific questions, Master Choa would not dismiss it, because dismissiveness is a form of injury, but he would politely go to the next question. I'm not quite my memory's a little fuzzy on how he did it, but he always made people feel acknowledged, validated, loved, cared for. But if you asked a very specific question, in general, he wouldn't answer it because it's not benefiting everybody in the group. I remember one time somebody asked a very specific question about Kundalini. Now, if you can imagine this just for a second, you have a world teacher that's on stage, a grand master of energy, and he says, does somebody want to answer that question for her? It was a woman who asked the question about Kundalini in the class. And guess who raised their hand out of 200 people? So I'm mid-20s, right? And I'm attempting to explain Kundalini energy in front of my classmates, and Master Cho was giving me the quote unquote spotlight or the platform to do that. And after fumbling around with my words for 3 or 4 minutes, Master Cho was looking around, scanning the room with his eyes, not with his hands per se. And he says, thank you, Christian, for sharing. I think you confused some of your co-disciples. Please sit down. Because at that time in my life, I was very, like, everything was bright and new and shiny to me. Everything, right? Like Kundalini energy, what's that? And there's a month-long rabbit hole. The basic chakra, what's that? There's a month-long, 2-month, 3-month-long rabbit hole. So everything was so exciting for me at that time in my life. And so I remember getting introduced to a master Kundalini practitioner who actually, there's a 600-year-old lineage that this practitioner was part of. So one of my mentors recommended that I meet with this doctor who could do a Kundalini assessment. I was jacked up about it. I was like, whoa, you can do a Kundalini assessment? Let's do this. And I went through the process. I filled out a 17-page biography of my life at that time and saying, these are all the good things, the not so good things, my childhood traumas, the best that I can remember. And then you submit it, and then you wait about 2 weeks for the person to quote unquote energetically diagnose you. What kind of Kundalini rising do you have going on in your life? And what this particular practitioner, who is also a doctor, a psychotherapist, said that I had what is known as Vajra Kundalini rising, meaning the Kundalini energy from the base of the spine was coming up and not going entirely out through the crown, but it was getting highly energized in a part of the brain. So she goes, that's why you think the way that you think, because that part of your brain has more sensitization energies from Kundalini. So in essence, it makes you intelligent in a certain way, right? So through that process of working with this guru, she was like a mini guru. She had her guru in India, and then she was in Tennessee. She was in Tennessee. And now actually she took over that lineage because the guru left the body and she was the next one in line. Really good person. Great, great feedback, great email, great information, even now, many years later. But I remember when I was just about to get into our Hatha Yoga, I remember explaining this to my pranic healing instructor, and I said, so I met with this Kundalini expert. She said this, and this. What do you think? Do you think our Hatha Yoga can help me with this imbalance in my system? She says, absolutely. Many years later, I realized how accurate that was. So what is it? What's the point of all of this? So I stood up in class and I was spouting off all the knowledge, not wisdom, right? Because I hadn't experienced it deeply. I didn't have insights. I just read a book, got a couple interviews back and forth, and then I thought I was an expert. True, I did know more than an average person, but did I know more than Master Choa? Did I know more than the masters that were currently in the room? Of course not. Did I know more than the senior practitioners? About Kundalini? Maybe. But it's not about knowing, it's about being able to experience it and then transfer that experience to another person, known as transmission. So it was super specific, and I lost everybody in the room. The term for people who do public speaking, it's called own the room, and also speak to your audience, like know your audience, know who you're talking to. I thought, hey, these are advanced people, quote unquote. I'm advanced, quote unquote. They should be able to understand. And I completely lost everybody in the room. But whenever people would get up and ask a question or make a statement that was very specific to their challenge, their ailment, their condition, Master Cho would be a little dismissive. So I want to acknowledge everybody this in this inner transformation membership group is that you guys are very much about asking general questions, which is great because that benefits everybody in the group because it gives an opportunity to go into detail. When people would ask a question that was general, Master Choa would get super excited. So if you said, Master Choa, how can we practice the virtue of loving kindness and non-injury more often with our words? He would get super jacked up about it because that would allow him to teach broad and deep. But if it's just, hey, I had this really powerful dream and I saw all these different symbols, these geometric patterns at this time of the day, what do you think it means? How many people are going to really be able to benefit from that specific answer? Not so many, right? So it's always good to ask questions that are general enough that it can benefit most people that listen to it, right? Because all of us need to practice more loving kindness and non-injury, not just with our words, but with our thoughts and our actions. Okay. So good job, everyone. Dun, dun, dun. So our first question, if enlightenment is the realization that we are a being of light, then if one constantly knows and feels that one is the soul and a being of light, does that mean one is enlightened? It's kind of a mouthful of a sentence or paragraph. So to put it simply, enlightenment is not an on or off switch, which I think that's the perception of the general populace, right? We hear stories of Eckhart Tolle that one day he went to bed, the next day he wakes up and he's enlightened, he's illuminated, he sees things clearly. Enlightenment is to be seen as more of a dimmer switch going from lower to higher versus an on or off. And I think that's the misunderstanding, that you're not in complete darkness or ignorance and then one day you wake up fully illuminated. There are levels of illumination, and it depends on many factors as to what makes someone go from this level of enlightenment or awareness to a greater level of enlightenment or awareness. So a realization is when you act from the insight, right? So most people have an idea, an insight about their lives, and then they go about their lives the same way. So, for instance, in Eckhart Tolle's case, he went to bed, he woke up, and he no longer perceived the world the same way, and all of his actions and behaviors were from that new viewpoint. It took him about 2.5 years to integrate that higher level of awareness because it was so profound that, when you're so blissed out, you don't need to eat, you don't need to interact with people. Why? Because you have a complete sense of contentment. That's actually one of the dangers of the yogis and of the saints who are highly developed, is that they are so far removed from their physical beingness that they forget the physical life, the physical body. They don't take care of it. They don't feel the need to drink, to eat, because they are in a constant state of bliss, right? That's one of the dangers of becoming that evolved that quickly. So there's usually an integration period that can take months or years for that to take place. So me telling you you're the soul and you're a being of light, a being of love, and a being of power is the mental understanding of that. It's not a realization, because if it were a realization, you would be different. You would behave differently. Everything about you would be different, right? So if someone's complaining and criticizing and judging, what are they identifying with? Lower levels of truth, negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative programs, right? But if somebody realizes who and what they truly are, a being of light, a being of love, a being of power, it will radiate from them. Their thoughts will change, their speech patterns will change, their physical body will change. They've even measured yogis, their fingerprints, and then after 20 years of practice, their fingerprints are different. They said that's impossible from what we know about human biology, that it's impossible to change your fingerprints. They also said things like it's impossible to control your blood pressure and your heart rate through will. Yogis have proven that's not accurate. So things that were once connected to the autonomic nervous system that we have no control over have been proven by yogis recently, over the past 50 years, that yes, you can control your heart rate, your blood pressure through the will. So it's a really good question, but simply put, just knowing that you're this, and this doesn't mean you're a realized person. Just like I knew about Kundalini energy from a book and partially from a teacher, but that didn't mean that I had a realization of experiencing Kundalini in a very deep and profound way in my being. Much different. And usually a good indicator whether someone is enlightened or not is them saying they're enlightened. We kind of have a rule of thumb in pranic healing and Arhatic yoga that if somebody says, I'm a great clairvoyant, run for the hills. Usually a good indicator when someone says that they're a great clairvoyant, that they're not. Because what's one of the big factors of being a great clairvoyant? Humility. Right? So Charles Ledbetter from the Theosophical Society was one of the great clairvoyants of the 20th century. I can pretty much guarantee you he wasn't running around telling everyone how great of a clairvoyant he was. But I know people who are, how should I say this kindly, very delusional, who say they're extremely good clairvoyants and look at their lives and their lives are in complete chaos. That's another indicator, by the way, of someone's accuracy. If their lives are in shambles, they're going to be giving you readings through the filter of that energy body. So if their life is full of chaos and drama, right? Financial, relationship, what have you, when they give you a reading, that's what they're reading through. Now, there are exceptions to that. There are some souls that when they connect, temporarily they're a pillar of light and they can give you accurate information. But in general, that's not the case. Right? There's always exceptions. Why are there always exceptions? Because karma is infinite. It's like you guys have heard the stories of people that were in plane crashes where everyone died except one person. How is that possible? Because it's based on karma. How could a plane fall from the sky, kill everyone except one person? How is that possible? Because that person was not karmically entitled to die that way. Right? So it defies, quote unquote, the laws of whatever, gravity. Okay, next question. Can you explain anything about near death or out of body experiences? Why do they leave? Why do they come back? What is the spiritual meaning of it all? Yeah, there was actually a neuroscientist that had an out of body experience or near death experience that validated for this person the afterlife. And he wrote a book about it. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack with that. And when you go down the tunnel of light, what you're going down is the spiritual cord. Remember that we talk about the cord that connects our little selves to our big selves? That tunnel of light is the cord. You're literally going through, your consciousness is going through the cord. Now, with higher meditation practices, you're taught how to leave. Every time you go to sleep at night, you leave your body. Most all of your consciousness transfers into your emotional body when you go to sleep. So only enough energy from the soul is left into your physical body to keep it alive, to keep it animated, right? So your heart can beat, blood, cells are multiplying, things are happening. It's actually really amazing to look at a body asleep clairvoyantly. What are the chakras doing? It's really, really cool. So most people stumble into these things, right? They have a near-death experience, a car crash. They get diagnosed with a terminal disease. They have a tremendously severe trauma, and they leave their body, right? But they don't know how to consciously do that. So through one spiritual practice, you're practicing leaving the body regularly. And when you go to sleep, you're practicing dying. The only difference between dying and sleeping is that when you die, the cords connecting you to the different bodies are removed, or I should say unplugged would be a better way. That's how we come back into our body, because we're plugged in through these cords. When you remove the cords, the soul expands and has no body to come back to because the body's dead. We're only alive because of soul energy. No soul energy, no animation. Right? So what's the purpose? Who knows? This doctor who had a near-death experience as a neuroscientist comes back and writes about the afterlife. So maybe that was the purpose of that person having that experience. Why do other people have those experiences? I don't know. But what you're seeing is the light of the soul. Also, another thing to keep in mind, when you have a spiritual experience, you also have to realize it doesn't mean you're advanced. I know that sounds a little counterintuitive, meaning someone who's a clairvoyant, someone who can see energy, it doesn't mean they're advanced soul. It just means they've developed a certain ability to see energy, right? What determines whether someone is an advanced soul or not is the degree of mastery of the virtues. That's how you know if someone is an advanced soul. And there's an old saying that a fisherman can spot another fisherman from afar. So an enlightened person can recognize another enlightened person. An unconscious person can be next to a highly evolved soul and be completely oblivious to it. because they see the world through what? Their filters. So if I'm unconscious and I look at other people, I see them through that same level of unconsciousness. But I, as an enlightened being, would see the other enlightened beings and lower. That's a key word, by the way, and lower, because you can only see at your level and below, right? You can only see at your level and below. That's related to many other things. So, and to connect to this, I brought this up one other time before, connecting it to the soul infusing itself into the bodies. As I understand it, with Alzheimer's, which I've, for some reason, many people in my life have suffered from that. Friends, their parents, um, my father to a degree, not so severe before he left the body. But as I understand it, Alzheimer's is a way that the higher soul is compassionate towards the incarnated soul. Because someone who experiences severe trauma and pain, as they get older, a part of the soul removes its consciousness from the brain of that experience, so the person doesn't keep reliving it. So most people that I know who have Alzheimer's, I asked the people who know them well, and I said, did this person experience not a little trauma but a severe trauma? In almost all cases, that was accurate. So it's a compassionate thing that the higher soul does, is extracts a little bit of its consciousness from the mental body and the brain, so the person doesn't keep reliving the trauma. Which, interestingly enough, there's a political guy that I follow on YouTube, and he was talking about his grandmother suffered from Alzheimer's, and he said, but it was the weirdest thing because she lived a really traumatic life. And I go, ding, ding, ding. And he says, but the last 2 years of her life, she was like a different person. She was so happy and joyful, and she couldn't remember her trauma. So that's a way that the higher soul is showing compassion to the incarnated soul, which, I mean, makes sense, right? The little Men in Black thing where you see something that you shouldn't be seeing and they hit the light and erases your memory. It's kind of like that on the higher soul's level. So, next question. What things should we be doing every day? Meditation, superbrain yoga, I'm the Soul Affirmation. You have mentioned many in different streams. It would be helpful for them to be all in one answer. Oh, we have another question coming in same time. Would that apply to people who have brain injuries and lose their memory? No. No, because the reason they're having so they have the injury to the brain, right? To the brain, to the physical body, and then that's an imprint of, how do I put this? Leaking prana out of that part of their body, versus the soul is removing consciousness to prevent the person from remembering the trauma. So it's different factors. It's a good question. Um, So again, what things should we be doing every day? Meditation, superbrain yoga, I'm the Soul Affirmation. You've mentioned many in different streams. It would be helpful for them to be all in one answer. Okay, so there are many different tools within pranic yoga and arhatic yoga for different purposes, right? So you have tools to help you with your health. You have tools to help you with your finances. You have tools to help you with your relationships. You have tools to help you with your spiritual growth and development. You have tools to help you become a smarter person. So there's many different tools for many different purposes. So it really is dependent upon what the person's objective is. And as one of the pranic healing masters said a couple years ago at one of the retreats, your sole focus in this incarnation, and he might have been saying it to us as the arhatic yoga practitioners at a retreat, right? So I have to kind of, like, as I mentioned earlier, know your audience. So maybe he was knowing his audience and he wouldn't say this to the general public. I don't know, right? Because it's a little bit out of context. But he says soul realization is your primary focus in life. And I got all excited about that because I'm like, well, yeah, that's why I'm here, soul realization. Realizing, not knowing mentally, yeah, I'm a being of light, love, and power, but experiencing that. which is subjective, not objective, right? That's why an enlightened person is having the subjective experience of what? Bliss, oneness. And so they'll see and experience another being that is radiating that level of energy and that vibrational frequency, right? Does that make sense, or did I lose you guys? So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, will determine which tool you use, how often, and when. So, for instance, the I am the Soul Affirmation is the practice of realizing who you are, the soul, and what you are not, the body, the emotions, and the thoughts. So, how often should you practice that? All the time, until what happens? You realize it. So, as you keep practicing, I am the soul, I'm not the body, I'm not the emotions, I'm not the thoughts, etc., etc., what are you doing? You're strengthening your connection to your higher soul until it eventually becomes permanent. So no matter what's happening in your external world, you're connected. So that's a great tool to stay connected. Twin Hearts meditation, it does many, many different things. It cleanses you, it energizes you, it generates a tremendous amount of good karma. It transforms and transmutes energy for yourself and those that are in your environment. It reveals things to you. It connects you with the divine plan. It activates the heart. It helps you with your purpose in life. I mean, there's so many different benefits to doing Twin Hearts. So it depends. That would be more of a sit down practice. The I am the Soul Affirmation you do all the time. Super brain yoga, if you want to become super, super smart. If you don't want to have memory issues as you age, that's something you would practice when? Every single day. And it takes a minute to do. The things I would recommend people do all the time: the I am the Soul Affirmation every single day, Twin Hearts every single day, Super Brain Yoga every single day, the Lord's Prayer before bed every night, and then taking our Hatha Yoga, and then you'll actually have a step by step. So in general, if you practice full Hatha Yoga practices, you're looking at about an hour and a half per day. An hour and a half per day dedicated to your spiritual growth and development. Master Choa's practice was about 4 hours a day, give or take, about 4 hours a day. And I remember saying that to my mentor. I was like, wow, that's a long time to be doing very high level spiritual practices. He says, or she said, look what he was able to accomplish after doing those 4 hours, right? 13 different businesses, a worldwide movement, hundreds of thousands of people affected, wrote over 20 books, created over 20 seminars and workshops, gave to charities all over the world, started his own charities, right? And he was doing 4 hours of spiritual practices. Why? Because in those 4 hours, he's cleansing and purifying things. He's clearing the path. He's energizing his activities. And then he's having clarity through connecting with his higher soul. So everything he does is in alignment with the greater plan. But what if you're distracted, not connected, confused, lost, angry, stressed out, fearful? How effective are you going to be in your week, your month, your quarter, your year? So it's a great investment, return on your energy, I call it, when you do your practice. I assume your daily routine would change and evolve as you grow spiritually and your needs change. Correct. Same thing with the grocery store analogy, right? You go into the grocery store and most people don't get the same thing every single time they go into the grocery store in general, right? Sometimes you need more of something, sometimes you need less of something. So for instance, one of my favorite mantras of all time is Om Mani Padme Hum. When it's hitting the fan in my life, which it hasn't happened in a very long time, but when it was hitting the fan in my life, that was always my go-to. So I would stop all my other practices and I would just focus on Om Mani Padme Hum, and my life would transform. The congestion would leave my life. Everything would be reharmonized, and then I would move forward with my practices again. But I have other people who are other practitioners I know who are very inflexible, and no matter what's going on in their life, they're going to do their practice, which is practicing constancy of aim and effort and non-laziness, but it could be what? Fanatical. right? So you're doing your higher practices in Arhatic yoga and your life is falling apart, right? I was there. And you're like, I'm just going to keep doing my practices regardless. Well, you're not practicing loving kindness and non injury to oneself. You're not following the simple instructions of one is suffering from Kundalini syndrome and you have to do these things. So you're just suffering, right? So it's not really the smartest thing to do. So it requires awareness. What do I need in this? What do I need in this moment to move my life forward? Okay. Sometimes you need to tithe more times than others, which we'll get to in a minute, right? Um, because we never know when karma is going to produce fruit. Our job is to plant the seed. God's job, quote unquote, is to grow it. We can't control when that seed will produce fruit. We can accelerate it, but ultimately, when it surfaces, we have no idea. So, what else? Um, like for instance, one of the techniques for purifications is salt baths, right? So if you have severe Kundalini syndrome and severe congestion, it's recommended to take 2 salt baths per day. Now, would it be beneficial if you didn't have Kundalini syndrome and you did 2 salt baths per day? Yes, but is it practical in your life to take 2 salt baths that are 45 minutes every day of your life? It's not practical. It would be helpful, it would be beneficial for your life, but who's going to do that? So that's why I can tell you, okay, guys, here's the 4.5 to 5 hours of things you should do every single day of your life until you die. No one's going to do it. But we can all do Twin Hearts. That's 20 minutes. We can all do I Am the Soul Affirmation. That's 3 minutes throughout the day. We can all do Super Brain Yoga, which is 1 minute, right? We can all do Lord's Prayer because we all fall asleep and we have at least 5 minutes in bed that we can say the Lord's Prayer. That will help us have a better transition into the inner world at night, right? So those would be some things. For any and all Arhatic yoga practitioners, salutations. Salutations is the cornerstone. Okay. Next question. Dun dun dun. How do you tell if someone has cords to you and where they are attached? Should you just try to cut cords from everywhere if you are someone that doesn't feel them? Great question. So in pranic healing or hatha yoga, we talk about cords. What are cords? They're energetic links between you and another person, or you and connected to a situation. So for instance, if you lived in Tampa, Florida, and then you moved to New York City and you had good and bad memories in Tampa, there's still a cord from you to that house, to that apartment, to that location, right? If you dated somebody for a period of 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then they move to another city or state, you're still connected to them. Every time you think or feel about someone, you connect a cord to them. How you think and feel about them determines where it's connected and what quality of energy it is. Meaning, if I'm sexually attracted to someone, there's a cord from my sex chakra to their sex chakra. If I deeply love that person, there's a cord from my heart to their heart. If I like to exchange ideas with this person, there's a cord from my throat and my ajna to their throat and their ajna. So that's how you connect to someone determines where it goes. If you're angry at them, you connect to their back solar and their kidneys. And Meng Main depending, but usually back solar and kidneys. Okay. Then how not how do I put this? Okay. Going back to the analogy because it's easier to understand. If you can be sexually connected to someone, right? In a healthy way or an unhealthy way. So if you sexually connect to someone in a healthy way, the energy that flows from them coming back to you will feel clean, it'd be vibrant, bright, right? If you connect to them in a unhealthy, unwholesome way around sex, that'll be the quality of energy that will be coming back, because like energy attracts like energy, right? So that is determined on your perception of that person, right? So you have you have one person who has two separate friends, or two separate people in his life. One person is their friend who they've known for 10 years, who they love to death, and they've done many, many things with, right? So that person's courted to them with good energy, and good energy flows back to the friend, right? This other person and that in that person's life is a coworker who they despise. Both chords, but the quality of connection is different. So the energy that flows differently. So you can have the same person have different energy going from them depending upon how the person connects to them. So if you have someone in your life, person A, who likes you, they connect to you and likable energy flows from you to them. You have person B who doesn't like you and has negative energy flowing from you to them. But you're like, but I don't have any beef with that person. What's the deal? Because it's how they're connecting to you. Does that make sense? So if they connect to you in a negative way, negative energy flows to them. If the person connects to you in a positive way, positive energy flows to them. Makes sense or no? Okay. So how do you know if you have cords? Energetically, from Pranic Healing 101, you can scan them. You can scan them frontally, or you can scan them like you're looking this way, and then you scan in front this way, right? So if a little Christian is 12 inches tall, looking this way, and the cords are coming out like this, I can scan cord in the Ajna chakra, cord in the throat chakra, cord in the heart chakra. Hey, where are all my cords? Cord in the back heart, cord in the solar plexus, back solar plexus. Ah, some people are connecting there, huh? Interesting. Navel, Meng Main, right? So you just go through and go, okay, now you go, well, what if I can't feel it? Then you just disconnect. So when we're taught in Pranic Healing 101, you imagine your hand as a brilliant, luminous white blade, like a knife, and you just go cut, cut, cut 3 times. And then you can do in the back, cut, cut, cut. You don't have to feel it. You just have to have a clear intention. What you're doing is disconnecting all unauthorized, illegal, draining cords from you to the other person or situation. That's it. Disconnect. You can also say disconnect, right? So you can go through and feel. We have a thing in pranic healing. We don't witch hunt. We don't witch hunt. We don't trace where that cord, like let's say we have pain in our back solar plexus, pain in our kidneys, pain in our Meng Main, pain in our sex chakra. I could write a book about that. We don't chase where that cord goes to. No witch hunting. Because there are people that are very good clairvoyants and really good scanners that could find that person. We don't do that. We just disconnect. Okay? We just disconnect. Again, should you just try to cut the cords from everywhere if you are someone that doesn't feel them? Yes. So if you don't feel energy, cut. If you feel energy, cut. Either one, cut. Now, we get cords to us all the time. So cords is how we interact with other human beings energetically. So it's not a bad thing. People get all worked up about cords. Yes, certain cords can be extraordinarily draining, granted. But in most cases, it's just a byproduct of being a human being. People connect to you, pull energy, and you connect to other people and pull energy. Easy. So for instance, as the facilitator of this group, you guys are connecting and pulling energy. And that's what we agreed to. That's the arrangement, right? Nothing wrong with it. And then I just disconnect and then plug you guys into a higher source of energy so you can continue to get fed, right? Next question. Do you know the historical timeline of the great spiritual leaders? Hindu gods, Buddha, Christ, St. Francis, etc. What order do they arrive in history? It's a really good question. It's not super easy to answer. Um, Wait a minute. What does this have to do with practical spirituality? How many times do I have to tell you people? Okay, so Hinduism, or actually, I take that back. Zoroastrianism is one of the oldest religions on the planet of the 13 major religions. Hinduism is one of the like the second oldest. But that being said, truth is universal. Spirituality is universal. Gravity has been around before we started writing, before we started speaking, before there were human beings on the physical planet, right? It's a universal truth. So spirituality existed before religion existed, right? Religion is simply a way of explaining the inner sciences, and every avatar, which means from the heart of God, every avatar or great spiritual teacher incarnated at certain periods of time to awaken the love aspect in that culture or country or those people. So you have Zoroastrianism was first, Hinduism shortly thereafter, about 5,000 years old. It was mostly spoken about in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a great text, which I would highly recommend anyone read, no matter what your religion is or no religion, because the teachings in there are as universal and as relevant now as they were 5,000 years ago. Then you had Buddhism 2,500 years ago. You had Christianity 2,000 years ago. St. Francis came around in 1200 AD, if I'm not mistaken. 1200 AD. So the great teachers incarnate at certain times because humanity is dipping, right? It's kind of like the Dark Ages. Great teachers will come in, or great teachers come in at certain cycles in the zodiac. So Lord Jesus came in during the Piscean age, which that's why they say Lord Jesus was a what? Fisher of men. Then Lord Rama came in during the fire age. What was that? I'd have to check my history on that. So now we're in the age of Aquarius, which is an air sign. So the teachers, the great teachers during this time will be using the air element. During Lord Jesus' time, the people who controlled the water controlled the world. Now the people who control the air element, telecommunications, radio waves, internet, energy healing, control the world. Look at who all the billionaires are. How do they make their money? Look at the people who have the most influence. How do they make their money? Right? Telecommunications, the air element. So we're in the process of an upward spiral into the golden age, which we're about 12,000 years from, roughly, because each cycle is about 2,500 years. So we're in the Aquarian cycle. We're starting that now. So it's a very exciting time in history because we're on an upward spiral. So things are only going to be going faster and faster and faster and faster and better and better and better and better. And then guess what happens? Woo, we go down into the dark ages again. Cycles. Law of cycle, law of change. So all the great spiritual teachers are from the heart of God, the avatars. And they all teach the same message. Love. Love yourself. Love thy neighbor as you love God. That's it. Done. But it's spoken in different languages. It's spoken in different contexts for the listening of the people. Like, for instance, with what we know about science, what we know about electricity, what we know about computers, right? Would that teaching be beneficial for the people in Lord Jesus's time? Would they have gotten it? No, they wouldn't have understood it even a little bit, even a teeny tiny bit, right? So Lord Jesus taught those people at that time for them to understand through what? Parables. And then the apostles and the higher teachers were taught through the inner teachings, the inner school. You have someone like Master Choa, a teacher of the Aquarian age, teaching what? Teaching through science, teaching through technology. So the examples and metaphors are based in that. So in the next cycle that we go into, that teacher will teach from those viewpoints. But it's all through the heart of God. It's the love aspect, because that's what preserves, protects, and provides. So if you remove the love aspect from humanity, humanity will destroy itself. Okay? Ooh, my favorite topic that I can never really go into much detail about. Can you talk more about tithing? Dun, dun, dun. So, as one of the masters would say, can I be honest with you? So, Grandmaster Choa Koksui, a multi millionaire, ran 13 different businesses, gave millions of dollars to charity, created a class called Kriya Shakti on how to help his disciples become super prosperous. He teaches 5 principles of how to be super prosperous, or 5 principles on how to materialize what you need, want, and desire in life. The one that we can share publicly, because I keep wanting to share more, but I have to follow simple instructions, right? Is the principle of abundance. The principle of abundance is service and tithing. That's it. And I can't tell you how many people get it wrong. And I can't tell you the people that get it right, how quickly they progress financially. The reason people don't follow this principle is because of negative pride, because of low self-esteem, because of unworthiness, because of lack of trust. If those things are in place, you would follow simple instructions and your life would be transformed. Because tithing is not an expense ever. Tithing is an investment that returns to you many, many times. In our current market, if we can get an 8% return on our money year over year, that's considered good, right? A Vanguard index fund, you'll get 7.5% on your money. You tithe, you get 10 to 100 times on your money. So you're like probably going, well, Christian, you're telling me, ready? You're telling me if I give $1, I'm going to get $10 or $100 back? Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. And then the next question, when? I don't know. Sorry. What did we say earlier? All you can control is planting the seed, fertilizing the seed, but the fruition of that seed is up to God. But guess what? You never plant the seed. What do you get? 100% of the time, nothing. Okay? This principle, I've shared this principle with people for at least 15 years, and most people don't do it. Most people. Think about that. I want to become more prosperous. What do I have to do? Well, there's 13 major religions. Every one of them talk about tithing. Every one of them. No exception. So this is what you do. Okay, great. The other thing is people's rationality as to why they don't tithe. Christian, you don't understand. I'm living off of this. Christian, you don't understand. I don't have enough of this. Christian, you don't understand. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's not called the opinion of karma. It's called the law of karma. That's it. If you want to get out of a hole that you've dug, financially speaking, you have to plant. You have to give. You have to donate. You have to tithe. Period. I had a client that was struggling financially for many, many years working with me. And I kept saying, you need to tithe. And she couldn't bring herself to it. Too much anxiousness, too much doubt, too much fear, no trust, right? I said, just do it. And she just Guess what? Kept going lower and lower. Why was she going lower and lower? So she could learn the lesson. They're like, the great teachers are like, she's not learning here, drop her down again. Not learning there, drop her down one more time, right? Then she finally tithed, and then guess what? Since she's been tithing the past 8 months, regularly tithing the past 8 months, and giving more money than she ever has in her entire life, she's never made more money in her entire life. You go, Christian, but that's just an anecdotal story. Okay, fine. I could give you many more. Would that help? So again, like the Lord Buddha says, you have to validate truth for yourself. So I can tell you till I'm blue in the face, or the other pranic healing masters can tell you, or other teachers from other schools and other religions can tell you the same thing. But until you do it for yourself, you can't validate it as truth or not truth, right? But you have to experiment to get feedback. So what's the protocol? You give 10% of your income per month to a charitable organization of your choice. That's the lower level of truth, but that's enough to get you in the door. You bring in $1,000 after taxes, say $750, then you tithe $75. That's it. Now, there are nuances to that. Well, what if I don't have any money? What if I'm commission based? What if I'm this? What if I'm that? Granted, that's a bigger conversation. But you have to ask yourself, are you planting the seeds for prosperity, which is giving money? I remember asking my mentor a while back, because we were working through the Achieve the Impossible book, which is the book that Master Choa wrote to help people become more prosperous. And I said, I don't understand. I've read this book cover to cover many times, and nowhere does Master say how to increase your income. And she goes, it's right here. And I go, yeah, but that's just talking about tithing. She goes, exactly. Exactly. I go, whatever. Now I've been tithing for 15 years regularly. It works. It works. And if there's a tendency within you to retract, because you have to be aware, be aware, if there's a tendency for you to retract or contract when you think of tithing, there's your clue. A prosperous person doesn't contract. A prosperous person does what? Expands and is generous. See? So that's an indicator that you have poverty consciousness coming out. How do you resolve that? By giving. Also, tithing helps you practice yoga and letting go. You know why people suffer and spend more time in purgatory when they die? Because purgatory means to purge. So when they leave the physical body, if they have not practiced letting go, letting go, letting go over the course of their lifetime, they're going to hold on into the inner world, and they have to spend more time purifying before they can go higher. So when you are in a physical body and you give money, what are you practicing? Letting go, letting go, letting go. What are you also practicing? It is in the giving that we receive. As I give to you, I give to myself, which is what? Oneness. You see how high level tithing is, but people don't practice it. It blows my mind. Does it have to be actually be money, and can it be time, material items, or need, etc.? So that's the nuance points. If you want time and energy, you give service. That's it. If you want time and energy, you give service. That's it. If you want money or material things, that's what you give. If you never want to be hungry, feed people. If you never want to be homeless, help people have shelter. It's so simple, but people don't practice it because self-delusion, lack of trust, negative pride. I'm a special case. This doesn't apply to me. That's like somebody, think about that rationality, which is not really rationality, it's irrationality. It's like somebody jumping off of a bridge and going, gravity is going to treat me differently. It's not how it works. Okay. So 10% your net income per month to a spiritual organization of your choice for life. That's it. That's the teaching. There's more to it, but the big, meaty 85% of it, that's it. If you don't plant, you don't reap. And at certain times in my life, I would tithe over eating because I thought to myself, I have to get out of this situation as quickly as humanly possible. How do I do it? I tithe. Because by tithing, what happens? I get back 10 to 100 times what I'm giving. Okay, I give $1. I just insured myself $10. I just insured myself $100. I can do this. And then, surprise, surprise, what happens? Why does the moon have so much power? Why do we meditate on it and no other planets? It's not the moon, it's the sun. When we have the full moon, its solar energy is least impeded from hitting the planet. It's not the moon. And why do we meditate on it and no other planets? Um, People do meditate on other planets, right? Um, it's not that the moon has so much power. The moon influences the emotional body, by the way. So if you notice during the full moon, people tend to go squirrely and get all worked up, is because it's vibrating like this, their emotional body, super fast. That's why people get worked up. So if you have a lot of stress, it really is loud in your astral body. But if your astral body is clean, then the influence of the moon vibrates and it feels good. But most people don't have a clean emotional body. That's why they get worked up during the full moon. Right? But we don't just meditate on the full moon. We have meditations connected to the different planets. We have meditations connected to the solar logos, right? The sun. It's not that we're meditating on the moon per se. It's that when there's a full moon, the sun is least impeded from hitting the earth, which is fertilizer for the planet. Next question. To properly heal someone, do you have to know the root cause? It's a really good question. To properly heal someone, do you have to know the root cause? Okay, so when we do healing, there's two aspects to look at. There's the understanding aspect, and then there's the energetic aspect. So if someone has trauma removed from them, but they have not had understanding about the trauma, which builds what? Patience, tolerance, compassion, love, right? Then the likelihood of the mistake being repeated is greater. So in Lord Jesus' example, he would do healing and then he would say what? Sin no more. So meaning, let's alleviate your suffering, let's do healing, and then don't do the stupid thing that you did that created the suffering in the first place, right? That's called the path of love and wisdom. Lord Buddha taught the opposite. He taught the path of wisdom and love, meaning when someone has understanding of their suffering is alleviated. So when you have understanding of your trauma, of your anxiety, your depression, your fear, your poverty consciousness, meaning you have understanding of the cause of it, right? Then you have understanding on how to heal it and move it forward. That in and of itself is healing. So you heal through having understanding. So that's called the path of wisdom and love. Both avatars, both great teachers, the Lord Buddha taught through when one changes one's viewpoint, they heal. Lord Jesus said, let me do healing first, because Christianity is the path of what? compassion. So let me do healing first, then I'll teach you the lesson. Oh, you have lots of severe back pain? Okay, let's heal it. Why do you think you have severe back pain? Because I keep twisting it and I'm not paying attention when I'm lifting things. Okay, great, that's your lesson. Move forward. Or I think I have back pain because I'm really angry at my coworkers. Okay, practice forgiveness. So some people are not open receptive to having understanding when they're in so much pain. So you heal them. But some people are like, hey man, I need to know more than just this healing thing. I need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Exactly. So then they get understanding. So when you combine both, you have transformation super, super fast. Understanding, healing. So, yes, it helps for the person to know the cause of their suffering. If you want to heal them permanently. I had one client, so I'll give you an example. I had one client who hired me to heal him of certain things. And he said, he's been with me for 6 years. Almost 6 years this client has been with me. And he told me in the first year that we were working together, he hired me so I could do all the work for him. Right? He didn't want to do anything. He's like, look, I have this pain. Here's money. Take care of it. I have this pain. Here's some more money. Take care of it. Right? He never did the homework. And I assigned a lot of it to him. And did he have results? Yes. Did his suffering go down? Yes. Did he move his life forward? Yes. But then guess what happened when he started having understanding as to why that pain kept coming back? That trauma kept coming back. The issues at work kept coming back. When he got understanding and we did healing, surprise, surprise, transformation. Okay? So you have to have both if you want to do it properly, but you have to meet the person where they're at. I knew I couldn't keep giving him more homework. I couldn't keep giving him more understanding because he wasn't there. Right? So I would just sprinkle a little bit of understanding, a little bit of homework, and then mostly just do healing. But then as we went more and more through the process, we started evening it out of understanding and healing. Okay. Next question. What happens to the energy after meditation if you fall asleep during the meditation and don't do that after meditation exercises? This is a good question. In most cases, nothing. Meaning if you're meditating, right, you're doing twin hearts, you're doing a meditation practice, your energy is expanding, and then you fall asleep, a couple of things. One, the energy was too much for you and it overpowered you, or you're physically tired, right? You have to consider that as a factor. Your body needed to rest, needed to sleep. So this is a great one, great reminder. Many of you don't know this. 15 minutes, you can write this down. 15 minutes of twin hearts is equivalent to 4 hours of deep sleep. What it regenerates in your body. So if your body's tired, twin hearts. A little baby version, 15 minutes, right? But the caveat to that is it's also dependent upon the person's connection to their higher soul. So if you have a teeny tiny itty bitty baby spiritual cord, which is nobody in this group, right? Right? Big fat spiritual cord, you can generate lots of energy. If you have a smaller cord, you don't generate as much energy, right? So there's other factors to be considered. But in general, 15 minutes of Twin Hearts meditation is equivalent to 4 hours of deep sleep. Or restful sleep, I believe is the term. So if you have a tendency to keep meditating and falling asleep and meditating and falling asleep and meditating and falling asleep, one, you're not doing enough exercises before meditation. Two, you're going to get congested and you're going to likely have Kundalini syndrome. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I've had all the Kundalini syndromes except ESP Kundalini syndrome, which is mystical, right? Like you can't turn off your clairvoyance. You can't turn off some mystical faculty. I guess my clairaudience to a degree was unmanageable. It's much, much better now, so it's under wraps. But Kundalini syndrome simply means there's not enough spiritual energy coming down to cleanse and cool down the system. And then the Kundalini energy that's coming up is hitting a dirty, congested energy body. So if you keep meditating, you're generating energy that's not being used. So it becomes stagnant, right? Becomes dim and grayish. And then if you have Kundalini energy coming up, it's going to magnify that congestion and keep it locked into your system longer. So you become, another way of looking at it is you become energetically inflamed. That's what Kundalini syndrome is. It's horrible. And one of the first things that Kundalini syndrome hits, you ready? Your finances. There's a couple of reasons for that. One of the big ones is if you're balanced, meaning your upper aura, middle aura, and lower aura are all about the same width. We're actually kind of shaped like an upside down egg in general, like this. If you start your spiritual practice, where are your upper chakras getting the energy from to become activated? The lower chakras. So the lower chakras are feeding the upper chakras. So if you have a teeny tiny basic chakra and you start your spiritual practice, what happens? Goes down, pulls that energy up to activate the heart, activate the throat, the ajna, the forehead, the crown. Now, what does the basic chakra have for energy? Not so much. So, this is one reason spiritual people are like this. They're space cadets, they're floaty, they're not grounded because their practice is making them go from here to like this. That's why physical activity is super important. That's why cleaning and energizing your basic is super important. That's why purification is super important. That's why tithing and service is super important. Because it makes you like this, balanced. Not like this, not like this. So, but if you do it once a week, once every few weeks, it's not the end of the world. But if you make a habit of it, it's going to catch up to you. Just like pranayama. If you do too much pranayama for a couple days, you're not going to notice it. But if you do too much pranayama for a couple weeks, you're going to notice it. You're going to be super hot, irritable, insomnia. You're not going to be really warm and fuzzy to be around. You'll be warm and not so fuzzy. You'll be warm and spiky. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant being hot all the time. It's actually very unpleasant. Last question. When working on removing old trauma, you have to become aware of multiple traumas that seem to be repeated pattern. Which one do you work on removing first? The most recent or the root cause of you even know what that is? I think I need to rewrite the question a little bit. Not a problem. Okay, so it's basically which trauma do you work on first? So somebody was molested as a child. There's that trauma, and then they were bullied as a kid. There's that trauma. Which trauma do you work on? You work on trauma. You work on trauma. So is it helpful to go to the core energy? Yes. But in the beginning of healing somebody, do general, because that's going to pull out all the things connected to it. So if you're doing healing on someone using pranic healing protocols or crystal pranic healing, you focus on trauma. And then as you're removing the trauma, all the things attached to trauma come with it. And then as you do a process of purification through healing that, then you can go childhood trauma, trauma around sex, trauma around abandonment, right? So you start general, then you go specific. What else? That's a really good question. The older the trauma, the more energy and the longer it will take to heal. So if you just had a traumatic event happen last week, it'll be faster and easier to heal and remove than childhood trauma. But childhood trauma, that's the stuff that needs to be worked on. Because when you resolve childhood trauma, fear of abandonment, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, um, low self esteem, which we get typically in our childhood, when you heal those things, it takes longer, it's heavier, it's thicker. But when you remove that, man, everything else is cake. And the person really transforms. At some point, I want to create a program for the inner child because it's amazing when you have understanding around the inner child and then you do healing on the inner child and give like homework connected to the inner child, how transformative that approach is. So maybe in the next 6 months or something. It's not an easy program, and I don't think I could do it in a group setting. I think I would have to do it one-on-one because of the depth and the intricacies of healing a person's inner child. But it's extremely powerful because if you look at it from that little voice inside your head, right, is the inner child. There's a difference between the higher soul talking to you, right, and the inner child seeking help. So if I said, "Hey, would you be willing to do this thing to get out of your comfort zone?" Whatever that is, right? Public speaking, getting naked in front of a stranger. I don't know, whatever the uncomfortable thing would be. The thing that's like, that's the inner child. The thing that's talking you out of things and trying to protect you is the inner child. But if you become skillful as the what, the higher soul is the parent to the inner child. And the higher soul, a better way of saying it is the parents. Parents meaning what? Feminine, masculine. And that will heal your inner child. So when you're terrified to do something, when you're stuck in a rut, when you're beating yourself up, when you're like, I'm not good enough, I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm that, that's your inner child saying that. But if you have a beautiful, healthy, healing, wholesome, nurturing relationship with the inner child, that voice goes away because the child is loved, protected, feels safe, feels everything is hunky dory. So that resistance is gone. It's really, really, really powerful work. I mean, I've heard about the inner child for 20 years, but I didn't quite understand it the way I do now. So, future program, I suppose. Okay. Those are our questions for the day, everybody. And I'll post this as soon as we get off. And my voice made it through the whole recording. Yay, me. So proud of myself. But yeah, all that stuff about abandonment, not feeling good enough, not taking compliments, right? All of it's connected to the inner child. It's really amazing. Like not being able to get happy, like I want to celebrate this, but what if, what, right? It's the inner child. It's like the inner child like dodging things because it's always being attacked, or it feels like it's being attacked. So when you negatively talk to yourself, right? When you say mean, cruel, hurtful things to yourself, you're so stupid, you're so this, you're so that, you're talking to the inner child. So you're attacking yourself. It's not good. Okay. So I hope that is food for thought. And again, not naming any names, but remember our questions, make them practical. Do we want to know about the great, 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 great spiritual teachers? Yes. Right? Do we want to know about the great religions that formed humanity as it is now and where humanity is evolving to? Yes. The ideals of those religions? Yes. But keep it practical, nice and practical, right? So we can move forward. So let us close. Be aware of your heart. Just sit with a moment of gratitude. Gratitude for this group, gratitude for this wisdom and these energies, gratitude for yourself that you're dedicating your life to becoming a better person, a better soul, of connecting with and healing your inner child, recognizing that you're good enough. You don't need to perform. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need validation from the world. You are good as and who you are. And any little doubt, any teeny tiny voice that you hear saying otherwise, it's the inner child asking for help. Listen, acknowledge, validate, love. Be aware of the crown, reminding yourself of the spiritual lineage that you're part of, a line of great, great souls that are dedicated to helping you become better so you can help others become better. And be aware of the heart and the crown together. To the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, respected and beloved teacher, Grandmaster Choa Koksui, to his teacher, Lord Bodhisattva Meiling, to Lord Buddha Kuan Yin, to Lord Ganesh, to Saraswati, to Holy Master Count Saint Germain, to all the holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, healing ministers, to our divine selves, our higher souls, we thank you all for your priceless blessings. Thank you for your greater awareness and understanding. Thank you for expanding our consciousness and our capacity to understand these great, great teachings. Thank you for allowing us to keep them pure, simple, usable. We thank you, Lord God. We thank you all. With gratitude, respect, and love. So be it, and so it is. Thank you. All right, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your phenomenal Thursday. I will catch you on the Flippity McFlipperson. And everything's normal. I'm leaving Phoenix this Sunday on the 1st, but we will be doing the Twin Hearts meditation live because I'm leaving in the later afternoon. So the time works out fine. And I will see you guys then. This is Christian Long, Life Enhancement Consultant, wishing you a beautiful day, a beautiful week, and a beautiful life. Bye.